Also, by way of announcement, on Thursday, November 5th, 7:30 p.m. at the Cinema Arts Center, a documentary film, The New Patriots, is going to be shown by the SOA Watch Long Island. Mara has done a lot to promote this. And at that time, we are going to have the Reverend Louis Barrios, who is an Episcopal priest who spent 2 months in federal prison last year as a result of his witness at the School of the Americas. Louis will present that night. Has a lot to do with liberation theology, which, as many of you know, grew out of the Central American, South American experience. Basically, people there recognizing that it was not only their right to stand up for what they were entitled to, but their obligation to stand up for it. That whole movement, that whole liberation theology movement, has been squelched in recent years, and it has been held down and almost reduced to nothingness, although it still remains in the hearts and minds of the people in Central and South America. Those are the ones who live under the gun, who live in abject poverty, who experience a struggle every day of their lives just to survive. That's what School of the Americas is all about. I don't want to take too much time because so much has been said so far. But the School of the Americas issue, which Dennis has confessed, is one that he has given a great deal of time to over the years, and is one that has become part of our lives here on Long Island because Father Roy Bourgeois, the Maryknoll priest, who has spent a total of 48 months in prison on 4 separate different occasions, trying to bring light to the fact that this school exists. It's a training center for Latin American soldiers. Those are the people who are presently working in Honduras. Graduates of the school are now in charge of carrying out extrajudicial killings in Honduras. They are in charge of abducting people off the streets. They are creating the new category of the disappeared. Why? Because there has been a line drawn in the sand, which is intended at this time to stop, to halt the left-leaning governments. Now, Dennis used the word left as he described himself to you on several occasions. Left means democracy. Left is a word that is used to describe, in demeaning terms, something that we stand for, the voice of the people, the well-being of the people. And that is what is destroyed by graduates of the School of the Americas. Their most nefarious crimes are the killing of 4 religious women, first raping them, then killing them, then burying them in a shallow grave in Salvador. Graduates of that school wiped out an entire village of 950 men, women, and children. One woman, Rafia Amina, escaped and hid in the bushes and buried her face in the dirt because she heard her own children screaming out, "Mommy, Mommy, they're killing us." Graduates of the School of the Americas are those men who went into the University of Central America and dragged out of their beds 6 Jesuit priests and the mother and her 16-year-old daughter, who were their helpers, brought them to the lawn and blew their brains out, symbolically, because they were the intellectual authors of what the School of the Americas stood for, protecting the socio-economic arrangement that concentrates the wealth in the hands of the few. My friends, that's what's happening in our country now. The wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few. The School of the Americas is, as Dennis described it, it is a means by which we can alert people to this reality, because it is what's going on today in microcosm. I have spoken before the Republican Club here in Suffolk County, and as I spoke to them on this issue, I had a military man in that audience stand up and say, "That was no military that I was ever part of." I was content to have him say that at that time. If I had had enough time with him, I could have convinced him that's exactly the kind of military that he was part of. Because the military now in Iraq is blowing doors down, ransacking houses, raping women, unfortunately, killing children, unfortunately. It's an expansion of the empire. And the very unfortunate thing is that the empire is in capable new hands. That's where our disappointment begins to set in. So, if you can at all make a long trip and go to Fort Benning, you will be thrilled and you will be thoroughly encouraged by what you find there. People from all over this country who come, people who you can walk up to and simply say hello and tell you that whole life story. People who celebrate on Friday and Saturday, but then on Sunday become extremely solemn. because they walked to that gate, which we used to be able to cross over and enter the base, to get to the headquarters of that school and tell the commanders, stop, it's killing, basta, as they say in Spanish, enough. Now you can't, because since 9/11, that event which calls for our additional attention to answer all of the unanswered questions that have yet to be answered on that. But since 9/11, the fence has been erected. Now the best that the people can do is to go there and place their grave markers, place their military uniforms, place their fat flowers, place their pictures of the dead that they know personally. And on so many occasions when I've seen that fence so laden down with such items, I think it's going to fall because of the weight of all of these things that are put there. And it will fall because of the weight of your collective action. As one of our defendants said before Judge Robert Elliott, the man who sentenced Martin Luther King twice, the man who pardoned Lieutenant Calley for his involvement in the My Lai massacre, as one of our defendants, a Jesuit priest, with that judge would not call father, but would say, Mr. He said to him, Mr. Bixel, do you have anything to say? And he stood out there with such strength, and he pointed to the judge, and he said, Judge, you're on the wrong side of that bench. Step down and join us. This is America. And he said, Judge, you know what I pray for? I pray that that school will close. But more than that, I pray that you will join us in that effort. A year later, we delivered an invitation to him in the midst of his courtroom, requesting him to come to the demonstration. He never did. He's since died. But it will happen, and it will happen because of the work of people like you. And tonight when we sing, the Veterans for Peace Choir, and they sing, Study War No More, and when they sing, where have all the flowers gone? Well, the flowers are here, and we will study no war no more. But not only that, we will act in whatever way we can to name the reality of what these leaders are putting before us, telling us that it's right when we know full well it's wrong. Thank you.